Hello everyone, welcome to the 170 Q&A practice. We're going to start off with the plaintiff questioning. Ready? And the subject is a car accident. Officer Knight, you were not in Rochester County at the time of the accident? No, I wasn't. And you had no information of it until sometime after 10 o'clock in the evening of February 19th? That is right, yes, sir. What was the first connection that you had within an investigation into the matter? When John Martin, the sheriff, called me about 10:15. Mr. Martin called you at your home? At my home. And then in response to his call, you went to meet him? I met him at Leeds Mortuary. And you met him at the Leeds Mortuary? Yes. And was there anyone with him there at that time? I don't recall. I don't believe so in my remembrance. How long were you at the mortuary? Oh, I don't know. Maybe 20 minutes. It may have been longer than that. When we left the mortuary, we got out to the scene of the accident about 11:15. Did you proceed directly from the mortuary to the scene of the accident? I believe we did. As near as I can recall, we did. Did you go in his car? I think we went in the patrol car. But the two of you were together in the patrol car? I believe we were. In any event, the two of you reached the scene of the accident together? Yes. And on what highway did the accident occur? Highway 54. Is that one of the main arterial highways? Yes. Is that a curvy and steep highway? Yes, it is. It's a steep highway. Is it finished with a guardrail? Yes, there is a guardrail. The guardrail is continuous? Yes, it's continuous, no breaks. What kind of a night was it? Do you recall? As I recall, it was clear but cold. Clear but cold? Very cold. I believe it was below zero. You say you couldn't see much at this time of the accident? Not much physical evidence. It was dark, of course? Yes. There was no moon? No. And because it was dark and you couldn't see any physical evidence, you didn't assume to go ahead that night and take any measurements? No, I figured it would be better to do it in the daytime. Safer. By the way, when you were at the mortuary, did you look at the body of Mr. Longerman? I did. Was it clothed? Yes, it still was. And do you recall the color of its clothes? I believe they were dark. Dark? Dark clothing. But when you saw the body, it was fully clothed. Pants, coat, shoes? Yes, the clothing was dark. You noted that at that time? I did notice that at that time. Did you notice whether or not that at the time you saw the body, he was in a coat of some kind, that is, a wool coat or a jacket? I don't recall, but what clothing I saw, it was all dark clothing. All I recall was dark clothing, nothing that would reflect light. There was no clothing that would reflect light? No. Did you talk with anyone at the site of the accident? Nobody else but Officer Martin. Did you that night, while you were at the site of the accident, see any blood spots? I did that night. There were some blood spots, yes. Could you see it clearly? Well, yes, it showed up clearly. You had your car lights on, of course? Yes, but that was about it. You were working with a flashlight too? Yes, a flashlight. Was there traffic passing? It wasn't heavy, but there was traffic moving. There was traffic moving. Even while you and the sheriff were there at that hour? That's right. From both directions? Going both ways. Mr. Knight, at what time did you return to the site of the accident in the morning? Very near 10 o'clock. Did you that next morning at 10 o'clock thereafter take some measurements of the road? I did that, yes. And I understood you to say that you found the highway surface to be 21 feet in width. About 21 feet, yes. And a broken center line dividing it? Yes. An ordinary paint line? Yes. And a guardrail. Do you recall the color of that paint line? White. And that would make approximately 10.5 feet each side of the paint line? Yes. If the center line was exactly in the middle, sometimes it varies. And there was traffic passing back and forth that morning, I assume? Yes, there was. You say that there had been a snow plow, however, during that season, it being the month of February, which made for a space between the snow banks of approximately 35 feet? About. You call those banks berms? Yes, I don't know for sure, but they refer to a furrow of oil as a berm, and I assume a snow bank would be a berm too. Well, that would make then for a distance of approximately 17.5 feet from the center marker to the extreme edge of the plowed area out on the highway, that is, to the snow bank. It may vary. It may be plowed out more on one side than another. Now, when you speak of blood spots having been witnessed that night, what do you mean? A pool of blood, frozen pool, or what? I don't know whether it was a blood spot, but apparently it was blood. It was frozen red or frozen a light red. I believe when blood freezes, it freezes a light colored red. And what was its size or area? Oh, it was a spot about 10 inches around. In diameter or circumference? Yes, about. And did there appear to be some connection between the spot that you have identified and some other blood mark or moisture marks on the road? Yes, there was a continuous smear from that part. I assume it was the trail of Mr. Longerman's body. Did that appear to have slid along? Yes, there was a continuous mark, and it apparently had slid. That would account for the connection between the two places? Yes. Did you find any hat or cap in the area? I don't know if we did or not. I can't remember. You wouldn't say that you did or that you didn't? I wouldn't say that I did or didn't. At the present time, you have no recollection? I can't recall that we did or didn't. Did you find any bottles or glass? Any what? Any bottles or glass. Was there on the highway any broken bottles or any broken glass? I don't recall of finding any. Did you find in the area any contents that might have been in the pocket of the clothing or anything of that kind, such as a watch, change, money, or cigarettes, or anything of that kind? I don't recall that I did. How long did you stay at the scene of the accident after your arrival there late on the night of February 19th? Possibly an hour. Possibly an hour? I think we waited a little while. We brought Mrs. Longerman to the station. Okay, I will switch transcripts. It's going to be some medical, just for a few minutes. Okay, here we go. That would be your opinion of someone who would have difficulty in recalling a situation from one week to the next, assuming, of course, this person is one who has a long history of drinking. If it didn't relate just to a period of acute intoxication, it would signify some rather probable organic brain damage, this limited recent recall, if that's what you mean. Yes, doctor, is there anything in your examination of Mr. Johnson that indicated that he was not suffering from acute alcoholic hallucinosis? No, I don't recall anything. You don't recall? How many years have you been practicing psychiatry? 25. In your 25 years practice of psychiatry, how many times have you been fooled? I don't really know. Could you give us an estimate? No, it would depend on what you mean by... How many times have you diagnosed a situation where someone was suffering from acute alcoholic hallucinosis and later on found out that you were totally wrong. If you are referring to cases where we admit acute alcoholic hallucinosis and see them at the time, I think one rarely makes a mistake unless it's barbiturate poisoning or something else. And we are talking about a period of time when you are actually observing the person who is suffering from it, okay? How about in your subsequent diagnosis, after the person has had the hallucinosis, and then you are making a diagnosis subsequent to this day? I don't think I could answer that. I don't think I can make a guess. That's what I'm getting at. Is there any way you could unequivocally prove that someone is seeing a devil on a wall? No. Is there any way you can unequivocally prove or determine someone punching holes in the wall was punching at the devil? No. Doctor, with all the facts that you have with regard to Mr. Johnson's condition on this night, is it more probable than not that he was suffering from acute alcoholic hallucinosis? Yes. Is it more probable than not that he could not know or understand the nature and consequences of his acts? Yes. When I'm referring to acts, I'm referring to this shooting of his rifle into this dwelling home, shooting at a police officer, and even committing the crime of murder. Yes, it was my feeling that this whole thing was totally inconsistent with his usual pattern of behavior. It's not his basic personality to do this, that it was a product of his acute panic and psychotic state at the time. Is it your opinion that all of the subsequent acts that took place after he saw this image at this bar, this devil, that all of those acts were as a result of that hallucination related to it? I have nothing further. Recross? Yes, Your Honor. So, Doctor, there is no way that you can tell if a person is giving you the full information for you to base your diagnosis on? No, as I say, beyond whether it all fits together and seems to be consistent with a certain syndrome. You can't tell if the defendant had a remembrance about the rifle and getting the ammunition. All you can tell is what he has told you about that. That's correct. Okay, that concludes our Q&A practice for the 170 class. Have a great day.